Hello, everyone. For those of you on YouTube Live, welcome back. And for those of you with us at Symposium, also welcome back. Those of you who are on the YouTube Live link, we are still working with problems regarding commenting. So if you'd like to send an email to either just reply to your Eventbrite email to ask a question note, please do so. I would also like to invite up Dr. Barry Weiland to introduce our keynote, Dr. Brown. So Barry, I'll hand it over to you. Barry? I see him there. Sorry, Dr. Brown, give us one moment.
Of course. There we go. Welcome back, everybody. I am very pleased and delighted to introduce to you Dr. John Brown. John is a professor of architecture and the dean of the School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape here at the University of Calgary. He is an award-winning architect and principal of the architectural design firm Housebrand. They've completed more than 250 houses in the Calgary area over the years, and John is an acknowledged and recognized expert in residential design and in, I think, design for aging in place, and is active within the aging in place community. He is also, excuse me, he is also an alumni of the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology and their practice-based PhD program. Within that program, John investigated more new, evolving, and more relevant models of seniors' housing options. And this has now led to the development of the Garden Loft, which is a type of prefabricated modular home that could be set up as a laneway house. This has now been launched, and John, with John and in partnership with two other partners, to introduce the Garden Loft as a new venture. And this was launched in 2021. And I believe John is going to share with us a lot of the storytelling that goes around the development of the Garden Loft. So please join me in welcoming John to our stage.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate that. Everybody can hear me? I hope. Yes? Barry, you can hear me? Yeah, okay. I just want to start by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from the land of the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7 in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, the Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda Nations, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, and by the signing of Treaty 7 in 1877, the university recognizes that we are all treaty people. I'm really happy to be here today, and I wish we were all able to meet in person. But you know, that's the way these things go. So I'm going to share my screen and take you through a presentation, and we will have some time left over at the end for questions. Okay, so redesigning the future of aging. It's a bit odd to have a designer and architect at a health conference. I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and if you remember the original one, Dr. McCoy would always go, "Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a dentist," or "I'm a doctor, not an engineer." Well, it's "Damn it, Jim, I'm an architect, not a doctor." But like Barry, who's an industrial designer, we're very much interested in how the built environment around us can help in this notion of the future of aging and aging in place. So a little bit of background.
Sorry, if I can interrupt, your screen is not sharing, so I'm not sure if you've set that up yet.
Oh, I have. Okay, that's weird. How about now? Is it there now?
It was for a second.
Now? Not yet. All righty, let's try that again. Turn off. Entire screen. Allow.
Now we have it.
Now you have it?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Glad you got that. Okay.
Perfect.
So this was the first slide anyways. So you've seen it. You see it now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. So as Barry said, I've been around a long time, 35 years as a university researcher. In 2012, I started a PhD at RMIT in Australia. About halfway through that, it pivoted into aging in place design, and I've been working ever since in that area. Had rich collaborations with the Cummings School of Medicine, particularly W21C, and nice to see that some of my colleagues are on the call again. It's been a while since we've connected. I hope you like the way that the project has developed. But I'm also for the last 32 years, I've been a practicing architect and a builder. These are some of the houses that we've done. And I guess in the medical world, you would classify me as a clinical practitioner or a clinical researcher. So my research is predominantly my professional practice. It's where I test out ideas in the marketplace and then publish on that. And it's within that context, the bringing together of both research and practice that the work that I'm going to show you today emerges. So one of the things that's interesting about being a residential architect is that I design custom houses, and the custom houses are tight fit for the way a family wants to live or aspires to live. And over time, as I've been in this game for a few years, people come back and say, well, I love my house, but I need to change it because my life has changed. Maybe, the kids were young and now they're grown up, or they didn't have kids and now they do, or now they're working from home, whatever. And so I immediately started my PhD in 2012 around this notion of designing for change. And what was interesting about halfway through, when my brother-in-law contracted terminal cancer and came to live in my architecturally designed house for the last 6 months of his life, is I realized that with medical changes, the notion of change becomes more consequential. And particularly as we grow older, the changes become bigger and more consequential. And it seemed like a ripe place for an architect to do some thinking. And so, again, I'm sure this is old news for most of you, but this idea of the three phases of aging and how it is about shifting lifestyle, shifting ability, and shifting health. And that the way in which one can respond to that is through the notion of resilience, which is a person-environment fit kind of term that helps you manage that change. So using the person-environment fit graph, I just want to take you through some of the thinking that led to this. So we start out in the green dot when we're born with only minimal ability. And certainly no capacity to be able to live on our own. At some point in time, when we're in our late teens or early 20s, our ability to wash the dishes, do the groceries, pay the bills, clean up, dress ourselves, all of that equals the level of a typical house, independent if you're a parent of what you think your child might be able to do. And then everything is fine. And life is the way life is, until suddenly it's not. And that might happen at the age of 25 in a car accident, 35 with a chronic disease, 45 with a brain injury. It could happen, whatever, until suddenly it's not. But in the best of all situations, it's not until we reach an advanced age where suddenly something goes wrong, either physical decline, cognitive decline, or chronic disease, to the point where then our ability matches, and that's fine, but very soon drops below the demand of a typical house. And a lot of people stay in their home, and then we have a risk gap developing where it is actually dangerous for someone to stay at their home because they aren't able to cope. And it could be not being able to cope in all sorts of ways: physical, emotional, the ADLs of everyday life get in the way. And what happens if we don't do that, and we're suddenly on that curve, and the typical house is not there? For too many people, the only option is some sort of care facility. And a care facility is designed, rightly so, to manage the needs of of people that require their services. But the research that we've done is that there's a number of people that may only have one deficit that makes it impossible for them to live in their house. Not all of that. And you could be 35 years old and have a brain injury in Canada and not be able to live on your own, and you end up in a seniors care facility. And other than that, everything is totally fine. And so what there is an ability gap that emerges from this premature move to a care facility, and slowly over time that gap diminishes because your ability starts to diminish until finally somewhere over here you're in the right place. And I wanted to see what we could do about that. And if I was a physician, I would be able to manipulate that blue line, and through exercise and eating well and moderate drinking and all of those kinds of things, I would be able to hopefully push that blue line up and to the right. But I'm not. As I said a couple of times, I'm an architect, and so my world is that straight gray line of the typical house and the straight gray line of the care facility. And the challenge that I posed was, is it possible that you could have a home that could adapt to match your changing needs and avoid that crisis? So instead of the house always being the same, as your needs changed, you were able to have your house become easier to live in as well, so that you could safely stay on that trajectory that you have, because as your ability decreases, the house gets easier to live in. And so you're always above the line, so it's still safe until you get down to this point where then it's appropriate for you to be in a care facility. It's a gradual drop rather than a precipitous drop. So how would we think about doing that? And the example I'm going to give you comes from something that I think we can all relate to, which would be food, meal preparation. So let's look at that around this. And I'll just mention, because I see it now on the bottom of the slide, that when we have that increased resilience, where we're able to continue to stay living independently, it not only fosters independence, it fosters agency and dignity, and increases quality of life, which is absolutely critical. So let's look about meal protection or preparation. So again, above that line, we can plan, shop, prep, cook, eat, and clean up. When we get down to the care facility, it's designed so basically you don't have to worry about that stuff. It's just about eating. But there's a loss in agency, dignity, and quality of life if all of that is taken away from you precipitously, if it's not needed and you just happen to do that. It's disorienting and it's disturbing. And so if we look at how we might think about a more gradual shift in meal preparation, we might start out by saying, well, I can't shop anymore. So I'm going to plan, prep, cook, eat, and clean up, and I will have some model of delivery, home delivery, either through family and friends or through a service. The next thing that might drop off is the prep. I might not be able to prep, but there are meal kits available in which everything comes pre-chopped and pre-measured, and all I do is plan, cook, eat, and clean up. One step further, I don't cook anymore. So I'm getting pre-planned meal. I select the meals. It could be some sort of fractionalized service. In Canada, we have Skip the Dishes. It could be a family member. It could be Meals on Wheels. It could be all sorts of things. But you're still able to do the things that you do. and then it drops down to where maybe it's just the planning and the eating and you're not able to clean up anymore. And then finally, we're down here where we're at that point where we do need a lot of support for meal preparation, but we've gotten there in a gradual way while having our independence calibrated to our capacity, and that helps us to maintain agency and dignity. So now I want to think about how we could expand that to a more comprehensive environment, and that brings us to Garden Loft, which is the commercialized name of the product that we've developed that came out of all of those years of research between the faculty and the School of Medicine and W21C and doing evidence-based testing. We built 3 prototypes and we tested all of that. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to show you the final result. And so Garden Loft, it's a loft, it's a positive kind of living space, and it's in the garden, bridges the gap between your house and the care home. And it is a physical environment, obviously, but it's also a social environment, and it has a web of community contexts around it that enable you to do things. It's not just about the physical supports. I'll talk about those primarily today, but it's also like the meal preparation. It's about organizing a solution where all of those ADLs can be taken care of in the context of one of our units. And so we're really interested in redesigning the future of aging. And a Garden Loft is this prefabricated portable living unit with advanced safety and support systems that we can deliver to your backyard. So it's very much set up for the North American context of suburbia with lots and back gardens, family homes that are pretty much tight fit, functionally adapted or sized for the immediate nuclear family that happens to be living in it and can't quite accommodate a family member an older family member coming and living there because of size and because of appropriateness. And usually most North American houses aren't designed with universal design principles and accessibility in mind. And so if an older adult isn't able to live in their own home for mobility reasons, then they probably won't be able to live in their daughter or son's home. And if they do have a guest room, it would be in the basement, typically in Canada, which doesn't help very much because that's a pretty dangerous place to be. So the basic idea is that we've got this 38 square meters, 48 square meter units. There's a larger 65 and 75 square meter units for village applications, but they can be craned into the backyard of a house. They're portable. They can be removed when they're no longer needed. And what they do is it's more like creating an addition to your house, a temporary addition to your house that is specific to your needs, but doesn't necessarily get added to the value of the long-term improvements on the property so that it becomes difficult to sell. And it creates this multifamily compound with a shared garden space. So we can see the house on the right, which is the main house, the Garden Loft on the left, a 3-second run, maybe a 10-second walk from one to the other, but that's a big deal. That 3 to 10 seconds means a lot. Adults, no one wants to be a permanent house guest, and most people don't want to have a permanent house guest. And so with this situation, everyone can retreat to their own corners. They have the ability, they have the dignity and agency and independence of their own home. But even if that means that they get meals brought to them and they walk across the deck to watch TV each night, there is still that essential component of agency and privacy connected in with togetherness. And that close proximity, of course, is very convenient for family. And in the research that we've done, we've noted again and again the guilt that families feel for not being able to take better care of their older family members. And with this situation, again, it's very convenient. You're not driving across town, and the Mom and dad are available to provide informal support for kids. Companionship just becomes something that is more accessible. Now, of course, this isn't for everybody. Aging is a big tent. Aging in place is a big tent. Not all families are appropriate. Not all moms and dads are appropriate for this. And it is also not it is not suitable for low-income families at this point. Although I think that once we did a health economics study of the overall impact on the health system by keeping people outside of care facilities for a longer period of time, it might actually become something where a physician could write a prescription for one of these and have them delivered temporarily to the home in much the same way that any other kind of medical device is delivered. That's a long goal. Dune is out in the movie theaters here, and it is a bit like turning the planet into an oasis, thinking about that within our healthcare system, but one can always hope. Here's an image of the inside of our show suite, the 380 square foot show suite, looking out into the back garden with the house just a few steps away. I won't go into too much detail about the architecture, other than it has a wood interior, which I would imagine, like Sweden, is very typical of traditional houses. And the people that have visited our show suite, as well as the prototypes before it, noted that the wood interior feels like a cabin, a cottage, something that's affiliated with recreational time with family and friends. And it has that nice kind of feel. Looking slightly to the side, so this is 38 square meters. This unit is a studio apartment. It has a kitchen on the one side, and then there's a small place to eat. Turning around, looking, you can see how the table is connected into a cabinet that hides the bed behind that and holds a television on each side. Straight ahead, we've got the bathroom and storage after the kitchen on the right-hand side. It's all wheelchair accessible, and the rest. Here we can see moving through to the bed area with the bathroom behind, and then turning around and looking back out to see this. The roof lofts as it goes to the front, so it raises up in height. And the goal for us was to make something that was beautiful, something that was a positive thing to move into, where you could think, I'm leaving my home, but I get to choose all of these things, and I get to live in a beautiful new home in a garden that's got my grandkids right outside the front door, and my family there to support, and for me to help support as well. And then we have the bathroom. So you'll notice that I'm talking a lot about safety and support and care, but it doesn't. Maybe I'm hoping that it doesn't look like that. I'm hoping that the images that you see might be something that you would consider living in. And my big beef as an architect is that for all of the great support that goes into providing mobility and stability assist, too often the items that are being used have the aesthetics of the hospital, and that they convert a house into a hospital. And from the early work that Barry and I did a long time ago with the Paraplegic Society of Alberta, we learned that these people don't want to, most of them didn't want to be reminded that they had a disability. They didn't want to have a house that told them and everyone else that they were a paraplegic. And so the metaphor that we sort of developed was this notion of eyeglasses. Eyeglasses are a medical device. They just don't look like one. The medical correction that is inside the glass or integrated into the ground, into the glass, is completely between you and your optometrist. And no one else needs to know. And you choose your glasses, as my former mother-in-law did, based on your sense of style, the way you want to see yourself and the way that you want the world to see you. And just because your eyesight's getting bad doesn't mean that you don't want to have a pair of cool glasses. And just because you're getting old doesn't mean that you have to give up living in a house that is beautiful and joyous to live in. And so the challenge that we set, the architectural challenge, was how do we make the supports and safety features of this home as transparent as the glass in a pair of eyeglasses? I'm going to show you a series of very short 15-second video clips of me describing these features. It's the fastest way for me to do this on a presentation, and so just bear with me, and we'll go through these relatively quickly, and let me know if you can't hear the sound.
One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is right at my feet. Our fall protection flooring reduces fall injury by 43% compared to a typical floor. It runs throughout the house, including the shower, to keep your mom and dad safe and to give you some peace of mind. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special can be hard to find. This very functional tea towel rack is also a grab rail for those with mobility issues. They run throughout the house, including the bathroom, and there's even a motion-detected nightlight for extra safety. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special moves with the times. The height of the kitchen and bathroom counters can be fine-tuned to fit someone in a wheelchair, perching on a walker, and even someone like me who's tall and may have trouble bending over.
It's interesting with that one, we discovered that that even for people that don't need a walker or a wheelchair, the idea of lowering it down and having your dining room table brought over means that you can sit and prepare food and do the and do the washing up in a very efficient way.
One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special really gets things cooking. The high contrast white knobs on this black cooktop are easy to see and simple to use. When connected to the smart home system, the electric cooktop can be set to automatically shut off if it is left alone too long. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special only comes out at night. Motion-activated downlights near the bed and in the toe kick of the cabinets keep you safe when you get up at night and direct you to the bathroom without having to turn on overhead lights that can disrupt your night vision. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is best understood lying down. The optional electric adjustable bed can be set for reading and watching TV or to give your legs a lift. It can even be raised high enough to change the sheets without having to bend down. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is the central cabinet in the GL380 model. The multifunctional design incorporates a 50-inch TV in the living room, a 42-inch TV for the bed, and an integrated table that can be used for work, dining for two, or stowed out of the way when you need more floor area. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is the breath of fresh air. The bed headboard has a hidden cabinet for an oxygen concentrator, and the picture rail running along the sidewall doubles as a chase for concealing the oxygen tubing, and that helps reduce tripping hazards. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is within easy reach. The tall bedroom cabinet has low-set closet rods for those with limited range of movement, and the kitchen has an easy-access pantry and waist-height microwave combi oven. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is right behind this sliding door. The bathroom is wheelchair accessible with a no-step shower, hands-free washlet toilet, mobility grab rails, cleverly disguised as towel bars, safety night lighting, lots of storage, and an adjustable height counter. One of the features that makes Garden Loft so special is right outside this front window. As you can see, you're only a few seconds away if anything goes wrong, while still respecting the privacy and independence that both you and your mom and dad need and deserve.
So apologies for the slight marketing spin on those, but it's part of our website. So Garden Loft helps older adults to take control of their future so that they continue to live their life their way. And we do that by creating the opportunity for micro communities. It's a kind of micro community in a box of companionship and mutual support. And that could be putting a garden loft in a family member's backyard, so that you can help out with the kids. It could mean living in a garden loft in a friend's backyard and helping each other. Or it could mean living in a garden loft in your own backyard, renting out your house to a family for mutual support. We have 3 of these under contract right now, and actually it's interesting that one is in each one of those 3 categories. So just very quickly, this is what the GL 380 looks like. That's the one that we just walked through. The 480, so 48 square meters, has a 1-bedroom, its own bedroom with a sliding glass wall that lets light through, but it's frosted so that it still provides privacy. And then we've got this is the 75 square meter room that actually is 1.5 units, so that it's a separate bedroom and creates a courtyard entry on the front, and then actually has a secondary entrance. So there's 3 different places that one could put the front door, and this is more in a village situation. So just very quickly, looking at Calgary, if we think about using the GL 380 and comparing it to what other options are there, if you buy the unit and completely finance it, add in the utilities, you're looking at around $1,600 a month. That sits right in the middle of the average for someone who would be going, say, to a new condominium downtown with about the same kinds of level of fixtures and finishes. Finish level, of course, with none of the safety features there, and of course no garden. If you then switched and thought about it as a lodge, where you're basically taking the cost of the unit plus the utilities, add in an allowance for meals and membership in a club, you're looking at around $2,300 a month. And again, that's sitting right in the average for private independent lodges. Again, there are those that are a lot cheaper and those that are more expensive, but what we're doing is trying to provide a market reasonable kind of alternative. And again, thinking about accessible for low income, there are societies that could donate the units, or there can be different ways in which the costs for the units themselves are offset. And then finally, if we add in nursing care, in Canada, we have, as at least half of you know, we have home care provided as a right to every Canadian, and that provides a higher level of care. And there's also a move because of cost efficiencies to increase the amount of medical care that can be provided through home care. But then adding in 2 hours a day of personal care to that, you're looking at around $4,400 a month, which again sits in the middle of that marketplace. We've been talking to Alberta Health Services to do a test to see exactly how high a level of care we might be able to get in a garden loft if it's at a distance, assuming that we have access to some of the digital technology that we're also developing. And could it get to, we're pretty confident that it could get to SL3, but it would be useful to try to test that. And we're hoping once we have a village deployed, that we would be able to do a research project in collaboration with the Cummings School of Medicine and AHS to test that. So the other piece that we have is something that we're calling Garden Loft TV, which is our digital management system and support. So there's a whole world of digitally oriented supports that are needed. We decided to use the paradigm of the television and the remote control. Just about everybody, every senior understands how televisions and remote controls work. It might be a clicker, what we used to call clickers. And we've just substituted that with an iPad or a tablet that and allows us to adjust the interface on that. And I don't have slides of it. I couldn't find them this morning, but we do have multiple screens. So they go from being sort of technologically savvy, high visual acuity, good manual dexterity, and technological familiarity. It looks pretty much like any other kind of device, but as again, thinking about that stepped graph that I showed earlier, as we move along, the buttons get bigger, the choices become more selected, and things that get programmed, till ultimately it's just a big button that you turn, that is green to turn on and red to turn off, and it just oscillates back and forth for television control and for other kinds of things. So we do there are 4 services within that. The entertainment is the integrated TV and streaming services with an adaptive device control, and then something that's been very popular with the people that we've been doing customer testing with, customer exploration with, is a remote family tech support, so that the family member can log into the whole digital support system and quote unquote fix the TV, set the alarm, turn off the lights, change the blinds, adjust the temperature, do all of those kinds of things that can get the better of older adults as they age. There is a video connectivity that we have, so that you can, again, with appropriate permissions from the resident, you could do a door check, remote door checks. There's medical consultations that are available. We're looking at a behavioral monitoring with program. We've done some early work on that. And then remote activities with a community of people through our garden loft, and then the services, I mentioned this earlier, the fractionalized service management around massage therapists and hairstylists and dog walkers and food delivery and Uber cars and meal programs and all of that sort of thing, integrating it into a single system, a tablet that everybody is used to, that again is adaptive according to needs, so that you can book all of those services, manage your appointments, and your client, the relationship with private caregivers at the same time. Also talking right now to a care provider, someone who owns a number of facilities in Southern Alberta, about looking at having that tested in their facility. We've done some testing with the Brenda Stafford Foundation earlier in the year, where we looked at this and did some customer discovery. So you could have the same system in the garden loft on the top left, in someone's house. If they don't need the garden loft, they could still have that same system in the room of a care facility, in a garden loft, on the grounds of the care facility, or in a village situation, which I'll talk about in a couple more minutes. I guess I'll talk about that right now. So the primary piece that we're talking about right now are putting these units in backyards and enabling families to be able to look after their loved ones in a micro community. But we can also expand that and think about a village, a neighborhood, an intentional community, a small town, talking to a number of municipalities in rural Canada around this, where they're just the communities are too small to attract a private care provider, and people are traveling hours to get to visit their loved ones in a care facility in a larger town. The idea of being able to take 7 units and put it beside a community center. This is for a small town in Southern Alberta. Community center isn't being used as much. It's got a commercial kitchen, and having this where looking at an arrangement where the residents would be able to volunteer in the community center and provide some programming, and we're converting the front room, you can see over on the left, into a community space for them. And then it can also be done. Here's another 7 units in another town with a standalone purpose-built clubhouse that allows you to have again another intentional community with fractionalized services, so that the people that are living here have again some sort of modulated independence and authority and agency, not only of their own suite, but also of the units that they're living in. At a slightly expanded level, this is for a community in northern Alberta, a very distributed rural community. They identified the need for 18 an 18-bed private facility. They have a nonprofit society that was going to build it. One of the politicians saw me speak and contacted me, and what we've designed is almost like a kind of turning this inside out. That the line on the top where the parking is actually a range road, and there is a hockey arena. Just about everywhere in Canada there's a hockey arena on the other side of that road, but that is it for public, any kind of amenities, public amenities within this large community, a large farming, ranching community, rural community. So by putting the three amenities, a cafe, a library, and the wellness center, in a kind of strip mall situation where it's accessible from the front by the public and then from the back by the residents, it actually becomes financially viable to have a cafe, because that cafe is providing 18 times 3 meals a day. That makes it financially viable, but it can then become a community resource for the broader community. What is also cool about it, if we're thinking about agency, independence, and dignity, it means that you're not going to the dining room, you're going to a cafe, and you can meet someone there and have coffee, or at the very least you're going there just like anybody else would. And if you don't feel like going, you get takeout. So the residents all have their services are from the back. It's a two-sided building. It's also linked, so that if you're on the left-hand side or the bottom from this diagram, you can go into the wellness center, which has rooms that are rented by the day to various healthcare professionals, and also available for others in the community. But you can walk through that to the cafe. And similarly, if you're at the other end, you can go into the cafe and walk down either to the library or to the wellness area. And then finally, it's also possible to augment existing care facilities with these units. This is for very old care facility in southern Alberta with only small private rooms and shared bathrooms, looking at doing a sort of an extended campus that has rooms for couples, rooms for restorative care, and that those rooms, because they're portable and modular, they can be moved if demand changes. One of the things that we found in rural situations in particular is that fixed assets are very difficult to manage, because population densities are changing in rural Canada, and some places are getting bigger, but a lot are getting smaller, and it's hard to be able to decide where you're going to make an investment in all of this from a long term. If these buildings are going to last 40, 50 years, are they going to be needed for that much time? And so one of the big advantages, if we start to think about it at a systems level, either the government or private facility owners could have a suite of these units and then deploy them as needed in different locations. It's relatively easy to move them around. It's not a trailer. It does take a crane and a truck, but it's a lot easier to do that and a lot less expensive to do that than to build a new facility. So it allows you to update your residential offerings and even offer rehabilitative care. And this is something that Brenda Stafford and I have been talking about for some time. They're really interested in having these units and sort of reversing that curve that I just mentioned, where someone could be discharged into this unit and then in collaboration with some intensive occupational therapy and physiotherapy, build up their capacity to go back. So instead of the house getting easier to live in as time goes on, the occupational therapist is able to make the house more difficult to live in as the person slowly acclimatizes to living independently. And that's a project that I think would be a wonderful thing to undertake as well. And then here's a last view of what that might look like. So just to conclude, and then we've got some time for questions, what we've tried to do is create a platform that enables older adults, their families, and the communities in which they live in to provide places to live in which you can maintain dignity, agency, and independence as you age in place. So we've been working on this for a number of years. We actively launched the company Garden Loft and started promoting sales through Facebook in April 2021. We've had 250, well, we've had over, I think, 17,000 views of the site. We've had 200 requests for brochures. We've had 40 requests for complimentary feasibility studies. And to date, we've got 3 backyard units under contract just recently, just in the last couple of weeks, where we are now working with the families to get their development permits and permissions to put the units on their property. And we're anticipating to start construction at our fabrication site in a month or 2. We're also working with two developers, one in Calgary and the other in Ontario, to look at a multi-unit development. The one in Calgary is a 34-unit development on an underutilized piece of land in an inner city neighborhood. It's interesting that the economy, as you may have heard, in Alberta is suffering a little bit, and their development sites that had been slated for building are all shelved and put on hold. This notion of a portable development allowed you to do a kind of pop-up retirement village and lease the land for 10 or 15 years, put the units on, and then move the units somewhere else, and then the land can be redeveloped into its highest and best use as a permanent structure at some point. The other unit is north of Toronto in a town called Collingwood, where we're talking about doing a development there. We're also in early discussions with an assisted living corporation that has, I think, 15 different campuses throughout Southern Alberta and British Columbia to offer leased garden lofts to their district nursing clients. They're interested in expanding out and having an offering where they can take people from the community into their facility for their amenities, for entertainment and activities, as well as food, meal preparation and that sort of thing. And so in addition to looking at Garden Loft TV for all of their residents, as well as the people in homes, looking at them, they're looking at having a small fleet of garden lofts that they could lease on a short-term 3-month basis to families that would need to have to do something like this for their family members, again, as a stopgap. So what it's interesting is that diagram that I first showed, where you've got a stepped process down through ability. With this, we're actually talking about a stepped process of how one goes into the care facility. So it might start with living in your home with the digital support system, living in a garden loft in your backyard or a family member's backyard, and then living potentially in a garden loft on the campus of the community, and then finally into the room into a single family room when you actually really need it. So on that note, I think I am finished, and I will finish sharing my screen, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want more information, the best way to reach me, you'll remember it, gardenloft.ca. And if you email info@gardenloft.ca, it comes to me. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, thank you very much, John. Really compelling, I think, as an overall systems approach. It's quite holistic in its vision in terms of trying to understand both the requirement and, I think, the setting that one could potentially set this up. We have a bunch of questions that are coming into the Q&A portion. The first one has to do a little bit with the services that are provided. How are things like plumbing, electrical, and sewage accommodated?
Yeah, so we worked with the city of Calgary. We were part of their age-friendly strategy development, and city council. This was 5 years ago. City council directed their administration to help us to make this a reality. And so the head of gas and electrical and plumbing were the head inspectors worked with us for several weeks to come up with an umbilical cord design. So basically, there's a shallow foundation or a shallow trench about half a meter deep that connects the house, our garden loft, back to the original house, and it connects into the same services, into the house's services. So you don't need to go back to the city services. It's a very inexpensive thing to do. It's insulated, heat taped, so that it doesn't freeze in the winter. We've done it. We've been testing it for 5 winters, and it worked just fine.
Excellent. Now, that's within the city of Calgary. Are there other issues that are coming up in some of the other communities that you're looking at?
No. I mean, if you're living in it's pretty. Anytime you've got a garden loft, if it's in a rural setting, then you're connecting into an existing house in that unit. The project that I was showing next to the community center, we had a plan to connect it into the community center, and because we actually put one of our prototypes on the grounds of the Brenda Stafford Foundation, and we connected it through one of their air conditioning ducts into their main utility space. If it's a village, then you have a single point of services on the property, and then everything connects to that. So it's a very light on the ground thing. And I should also say it's an electric unit, so there's no gas, so it's easily convertible to electric, to renewables. It is almost at Passive House net zero building standards. All one would need to do is upgrade the windows slightly, which is an option within the purchase price. In which case, then it can be completely net zero with the solar energy.
Awesome. We've got another question. When can we expect to see the garden loft in Sweden?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess we just need an order. No, I mean, seriously, we're just getting started. We're looking to expand over the next 3 or 4 years across Canada. We're getting a huge amount of interest across Canada. Good question about when I'd love to go. I'd love to do something like that. I guess we just need a Swedish partner.
All right, and we've got another question here that has to do with temporary occupancy and the notions of is there an option where we can rent a unit when we need it, simply drop it in? How feasible is that, and how might the financing work around that kind of temporary deployment?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it's something that we think has a lot of potential. So if you think about a car, you can buy a car, you can lease a car, or you can rent a car. You can rent a car for a day, or a week, or a month. You can lease a car for 3 years, and you can own a car forever. And it seems to me that it would be possible and highly desirable to have those same 3 options for garden loft. So, and that's not that at this moment in time, that's not what we're going to focus on, but we think that there would be a business opportunity for someone to do that. And most particularly, potentially a care facility. If a care facility owns them, they could just lease them out, and then it could come bundled with care in all of that. So very interested in that. It's just, there's only so many hours in the day at this point, but it's very easy to do. And obviously the cost of that goes up. It's cheap. It's more expensive to if you look at the total cost of renting a car for a day versus leasing it for 3 years versus buying it. But the opportunity cost is offsets that.
Right. And you did mention that it could almost be deployed on a prescription basis. And certainly
certainly interrupt, Barry, but yes, I mean, that actually was one of the things that started this. We built the first prototype in our lab at the school, and we were presenting it, and I invited a bunch of doctors from the coming school to come over, and one of the senior members of the W21C was talking to me, and he said, I would really like to be able to write a prescription for one of these. And at that point, the design was for a permanent laneway house, kind of permanent backyard suite. And my business partner, Karina, heard that and thought, now there's a good idea. What would it take to make this something that could have a prescription written for it, like anything else within the public healthcare system?
Right.
In order to be able to, that's an easy thing to say. In order to be able to make that happen, we have to be able to demonstrate, first of all, that it works, that it has clinical efficacy, all of those kinds of things, which we will do through once we have people living in them. And as an academic, I'm going to continue to do testing, or I won't do the testing. I'll facilitate third-party researchers to do the testing. But I think that if we could demonstrate through a health economics study, which I've talked to with people from Cummings School, to actually demonstrate, because I think, what is it, $5,000 a day to keep somebody in the hospital? It wouldn't take, and how many, what percentage of beds are currently being occupied by seniors who have no other place to go? I don't think it would take very long to be able to think about the economics, particular, even in a conservative, right-or wing government, to see the health, the economic benefits of a system where you provided them on a nominal or no cost basis.
Right. And along those lines, have you been working with any financial partners to help, or is that something that is on the purchasers' side of the equation to put financing in place?
Yeah. So at this point, all of the people that in the sort of early adopter phase, they're able to finance. You can get conventional financing. It's part of the Alberta New Home Warranty Program, just like we've worked with them, so that it's just like that. And you can get a mortgage, you can get a homeowner's financing for it. It's possible to do all that. What I would like to do is, once we get things going, would be to approach a financial institution just around leasing, so that then what you're doing, just like a car, we buy them by how much it is a month, and working through that. Haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah, I suppose that could be similar to working with like a Tim Hortons or something to set up the cafe within the village.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Got another question here. Have you had much of an audience with disability autism communities? Looking at other market demands, other demographics?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We have, and we're marketing this for aging in place, but there are a lot of people that are either adult children who are challenged to live independently through autism or other kinds of challenges. There are people with severe brain trauma that, from an accident or whatever. We're talking to a family where the wife has MS and trying to figure out how to manage that. So there's a lot of opportunities for all of those things. And I think that, it's not maybe quite as big a market. It's not exploding in the way that was described earlier, but it's a significant one. And I think it's even more important because too many of those people end up in seniors' care facilities because there just aren't other options for them to live.
Well, we've got questions still coming in. Have you studied you had mentioned the environmental factors around the house. Have you studied the climate environmental impact of the garden loft compared to other housing alternatives? A bit of a footprint analysis.
Right. We haven't done a formal analysis. We'll do that once we get a few installed, and we'll actually we're going to monitor them, and our smart home systems will do all of that, and then we'll be able to benchmark what actually is the energy use. I will say, though, if you just think about it conceptually, we have a house that is super insulated, so it requires very little energy to run. That energy can be offset entirely with renewables. The unit is small and very compact, so it doesn't use much. It as opposed to a care facility, it doesn't have all of the service corridors and other structures that are required. And quite frankly, since COVID, the idea of having to walk outside to go from one unit to the next is seen as a huge plus, because you eliminate or you at least greatly reduce the idea of having a complex-wide lockdown if somebody gets ill. And then the other thing that I think is really important is the fact that it's portable. So, as I travel around in southern Alberta, I see all of these facilities that were built 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that are empty because the communities have died, and
Right.
they're just sitting there with too much capacity. So it is about, you only build what you need. You use the minimal amount of materials, and then you use it for as long as you can for its highest and best use. And so we're not interested in having these units being downscaled to becoming a family room for somebody. It's possible to do that, but really what they should be is moved to another family who can best use that space to age in place or to continue to live in the community.
Excellent. Well, thank you, John. I think we're at time, and so my apologies to folks if we didn't get to your questions. But as you mentioned, you've got the Garden Loft email that was shown at the end of the presentation. I believe that was info@gardenloft.ca.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. I'm so
thank
glad
you
you could join us today.
All right, I enjoyed it. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye now. And Alana, if you're there.
I am here. Hello.
All
Sorry
right.
about my halo. So everyone who's on YouTube Live, thank you guys so much for coming. Our next presentation will be at noon, at noon Mountain Standard Time, or 8:00 p.m. CET. For those of you who are part of the symposium, I'm going to hand it back over to Gina for our next collaboration mashup. So Gina, if you could take the stage.
Thanks, Alana. Hi, so I'm back here for the collaboration mashups, and for the second one. I see that we have a few more people than we had kind of earlier today for the first session. So I thought I would take this opportunity to give a quick kind of reminder of how to access the whiteboards and the collaboration mashup sessions. So Dean, if you can help me by sharing a view of the meeting room, that would be fantastic. So here we have the meeting room that we'll be meeting. You'll notice, so when you go into the meeting room, the 5 tables with 8 people at the bottom will have the names of 5 different persons: Isaac, Marianne, Carl, and June. And if you're new to our group, please just pick a table. And then Dean has helpfully highlighted the whiteboard function. So when you click that, you'll be brought up to a whiteboard. And Dean, if you can show what that whiteboard looks like. This whiteboard, it always takes a little bit of a moment. You'll notice that there's five somewhat completed, or like people have participated in that, and these are all identified by the names of the table and the personas. Again, that Margarita, Isaac, Marianne, Carl, and June. And then today at this session, we're going to be looking at the second set of questions, session 2. And so we're zooming in on what the potential challenges experienced by our older adults, and trying to understand to those challenges and what resources may be available to our older adults to address those challenges. Here I want to highlight that we're going to be using the results from session 2 to inform session 3 and 4 tomorrow. So if you were part of the sessions this morning and post-its, it would be fantastic if you can kind of help take a record of some of the conversations, something to work with when I help us kind of put together the session for tomorrow. So I'm going to kind of release you back into the main room, and you guys can kind of go back to your original tables. And I'll, for those of you who have not, pick one of the identity with the personas, Margarita, Isak, Marianne, Carl, and June. And if you have any questions, I'll be popping in and out and following around to give some guidance. And then I will be, there's also, you can go and look at the example board that should help you as well. So I'll release you back into the room, and then we can kind of get launched into the second of the collaboration matchup sessions.